All right. Um, in continuation of our series of interviews for our book on understanding and exploring the future of our work, I have with us a very special guest, Devang Mehta. Devang, welcome. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for doing this. Devang, just to introduce yourself, if we could just talk a little bit about your educational background and your early foundational years, please.
Sure. So I am an investor in and advisor to early stage technology companies. My background includes more than 2 decades of operational experience and about a decade of investing experience in technology startups across USA and India. I have degrees in computer science and engineering and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon Stepper School of Business. I am based here in Mumbai and work out of my home.
Okay, terrific. It's always nice to meet a fellow Carnegie Mellon alumni. And thank you so much, Devang, for doing this for us and sharing your insights. I think you have a lot of valuable knowledge and information to share. So I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you for doing this. All right. So since you mentioned you're in the early stage startup ecosystem, if you could just talk a little bit about, more details on what you do, how you look at companies, what is the investment thesis, how do you could detail a little bit about the workflow you have.
Sure. So I said I'm an entrepreneur essentially. I advise early stage companies on fundraising strategies as well as other matters critical to hitting compelling growth strategies. I'm also an advisor to a venture capital fund, Anthill Ventures, that I formed and built the first SEBI registered AI fund. Startups that I advise are creating innovations across sectors. I like 2, 3 sectors a bit more: fintech and health tech, as well as ed tech. These startups that I am advising, I help them with anything as tactical as improving the pitch deck, articulation strategies, go to market, rounding out the management team, and things like that.
Oh,
And then,
wow.
yeah, yeah, and then of course on the raw fundraising, reaching out to investors, explaining the value prop, and you know, gathering interest and taking deals to closure. That's basically what I do.
Okay, could you touch a little bit more upon that, the first SEBI registered AI fund? I heard that. Can you tell us a bit about that? That sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, so Anthill Ventures is based out of Hyderabad. It's a fund accelerator, which basically means they invest and scale companies, a true value-added source of capital. And we built the first India-based registered fund, which is the regulatory authority being SEBI, obviously. So we built that. I was the one that actually built and registered the fund here in Mumbai, and we built it out. It's what is called in our world as a pre-Series A fund that is focusing on startups at the pre-Series A stage of the investing cycle. So we built out that fund. We raised money from HNIs, family offices in India and across the border also, and we invested in about 30 companies.
And the fund's investment thesis is that it will only invest in companies that are using AI as their backbone.
I wouldn't say AI, but of course, technology is a critical element, either the centerpiece of the company or a key enabling element.
Okay.
And yeah, back to your question on the thesis was, yeah, technology has to be a key element in our the investing arena that we play in. I think there are 2 key elements that have to be there: a true technology differentiator or enabler, and the DNA of the founding team is something that we very closely looked at before making an investing decision.
Okay.
So founders, what they have done in the past, even where they've been educated, how they know each other, how good is the interaction between them, how is the camaraderie, is the go-to-market well thought out, is it well articulated? So I think it's almost a gut feel. To be very candid, we should make investing decisions pretty quickly, 10, 15 minutes into the first interaction. We should read the deck. It would give us a sanity check that everything is in place. They know what they're doing. They've thought out their business plan the next 5, 10 years well. And then it was a very gut feel of the entrepreneur's ability to growth hack into India.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. But there has to be a technology focus in.
Yes, technology, because technology businesses by definition are very capital efficient.
Correct.
So by exclusions, almost we didn't invest in real estate or let's say chemical plants, something like that, which are very capital intensive and there's not that much innovation, frankly. It's just more scale. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, this is exciting warm up for what's coming up. So as you look at these companies and as you figure out your investment decisions, why as an investor is it important to keep an eye on the future? As we write this book, we're wondering like, who's going to read this book? Why is it even important? So why is it important to understand what's coming in the future?
I think in our world, it's not important, it's imperative. If you don't have an eye on the future, investment decisions are made today predicated on what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
So you need to understand the trends of the future, what products and services are going to be important for the millennials, the propensity for them to pay for these products and services, and what truly brings about a change in their lives. So I mean, it's like I said, it's I think I summed it up there. It's imperative for survival to be
Sure, I
understanding
like
the
that.
future and make investment decisions.
Okay, beautifully framed. I'm gonna quote you on this. It's not just important, it's imperative. Okay, fantastic. So if it's so imperative, over the years, how has your business model, your thought process evolved, keeping in mind, futuristic trends? Any examples you can share of like, well, we used to do this, but now we've shifted to this.
Yeah, I think, for example, healthcare, where I focus on it, I think the need of millennials and next gen people is they don't want to react to disease. They
Mhm.
want to preempt disease.
Sure.
And they want to have disease cures very personalized. So, like for cancer, where I was involved in, people don't just want what I call just early stage cancer, just chemo and all the side effects. They want cures at a cellular level. It's something that that takes cognizance of my own DNA and what cancer cure, for example, is more applicable for me, like an Indian citizen based here in India with a certain DNA, as opposed to someone in Singapore or someone in Hong Kong. So they want personalized diseases, personalized disease cures, I should say, and they want to preempt it. So one theme I'm very passionate.
Preventative healthcare and as personal as it can be.
Yeah, preemptive. Yes, preemptive. So one theme I'm very passionate about. My favorite startup is in that area is early cancer detection.
Okay.
So they do early cancer detection, and India's first company at that, through detect cancer early through saliva.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So they literally have built a kit where you literally spit into it in the morning, and by evening it gives you a risk profile of low, medium, and high.
Wow. Okay. And you're testing this out right now, or it's been through the trials and testing phase?
Yeah, the company is about to enter clinical trials. We've been helping with all the groundwork to enter clinical trials. We got them funded. They've built up the innovation to this point. And
Okay.
if all goes well, by God's grace, they'll be marketing in the early part of next year.
So in your career so far, the last 15, 20 years, have you changed your investment thesis based on the upcoming trends? Were you earlier investing in certain kind of companies and now you've shifted the baton towards the lens towards something else?
Yeah, you could say that to some extent. Yes. When I started off investing as an angel investor, I was investing in companies that I was familiar to with from my operational background, which is the B2B SaaS companies, basically. So I have an investment in a company called Gaia, which incidentally is formed by CMU alums, Sumit and Amrita Chaudhary. But when I joined Antil, we decided as healthcare as one key theme, along with others, but healthcare, which I was involved with, I saw that I think there's a societal need that, if there is wealth in society, why should it not be channeled towards innovations that help us live healthier, live longer, and live more fulfilling lives? So you could say that I moved towards healthcare as a passion and in response to the needs of the millennials to live longer and healthier lives.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So as you view, you seem to have both the breadth view and a depth view because you see so many different companies, and then the ones that interest you, you go in depth. What sort of trends are you foreseeing, for the future? We when we put down factors, we thought about, of course, AI is going to influence the future, climate change, geopolitical change, societal change, workforce changes. What according to you are the top two or three changes you are seeing, and how are they if influencing the future of what's coming?
So I think data on health conditions is being gathered globally for various diseases. So the next logical step for this is that this data needs to be analyzed, uh, needs to be captured regularly, and is to be analyzed to find cures for diseases. Again, to find ways to preempt disease. So with all the growth in AI, ML, all the wealth effect, we still don't have true cures at a personalized level for cancer, diabetes,
Sure.
asthma, sickle cell syndrome. There's so many diseases that still claim lives and just come unannounced, right? So I think there's a lot of need to harness all the data as well as all the wealth, frankly, in many societies now to conquer disease and climate tech. I think these are the two most important needs of the hour, and what people are really asking for. When people, as in consumers, are asking for, and as a result, startups are addressing these needs, or in meaningful ways, and the whole investing community is slowly gathering and finding capital to finance companies that address
Address
these
these
needs.
issues. Okay. So you're saying
Right,
there is this customer need today that
right,
companies are trying to address.
right.
Okay, that's helpful. But as you see the future landscape change, like if you were going to you put your eyes on 2035 and you say, look, it's going to be a different world. What's
Yes.
going to contribute to that different world? Is it going to be technology? Is it going to be climate? Of course, there's going to be elements of all these things. But if you had to pin down like the two biggest factors that will shape the world to come, what would those factors be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things you mentioned are part of the answer in different ways. Technology for sure is central.
Mhm.
Technology is the underlying DNA that engenders any of these changes. So let's take climate tech that you talked about. Our own country, India, $5-6 trillion economy, 300 days of sunlight a year. Why should we be using any fossil fuel?
Mm.
We have enough sunlight, let alone wind and other sources, to power our energy need. Now, from the sun to a household, there's this complex path, of course, of gathering sun rays, moving that into energy that can be consumed, storing it. Of course, there's different complications involved. It's not friction free by any stretch,
Sure.
but there's innovations across the cycle. For example, sunlight is in the daytime. So like at night, how can you store that sunlight? So energy storage, clean tech energy storage. There's a whole area of innovation just around that. Capturing sun rays and the economic models around that, leasing versus buying and all that. There'll be innovations. There'll be fintech companies that will come around that. So at some point, a combination of all this, fintech, technology, clean tech, energy storage, energy capture, data capture, data harnessing, data cleansing, data analysis, all these will come together in an ecosystem of startups that will ensure that we have clean energy for every citizen in a ubiquitous and uh, you know e- egalitarian way.
Egalitarian way. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So you're predicting that's going to happen. You're
Yes.
predicting that fossil fuels and the usage of fossil fuels will
Yeah.
significantly reduce.
The era of oil has got to end. It's just got nothing but pollution. It was the need of the hour at that time. It has got so many geopolitical tensions all around it. But I mean, let's leave geopolitics aside. I think just the fact that it's these energy sources might be interesting in the 70s maybe, but it's not. The need of the hour today is to harness clean energy that is can be replenished easily.
Sure. But this conversation around using clean energy, solar, wind, etc., this has been going on already in India at least for the last 15, 20 years. How is it going to change? What's the future?
I think that's where it dovetails well into your next question about all the government getting involved, academia. There's got to be a critical mass of
Mhm.
actors in an ecosystem for this to work, right? So let's just take energy storage, right? So you can capture sun's rays in the day and store it at night and use it at night. Okay, simple. Now there's got to be a whole. Let's start from engineers. The people need to be trained on how to capture sun and store it so they need to be engineers trained in that. For that, they need the educational system has to have these as majors in premier engineering colleges to
Mhm.
teach you how to capture and harness energy and store it.
Okay.
Then there's got to be some government incentives for people to start using solar, because in India, switching is hard. People are very habituated to a certain way of life. And
Mm.
unless there's significant financial incentives, they won't move from one source of energy to the other. So there need to be significant government incentives, at least for new developments, to use clean sources of energy. Once that is in place, then startups will get spawned because they'll see good open large markets for them to exploit, and they'll create innovations for energy capture and storage. And once startups are there, then the investing community comes in because they'll see lucrative opportunities in numerous startups to invest in, and significant exit option in terms of IPOs or M&As. So it has to start with in some ways, the people that have unlimited resources are in charge of policies around this, which is the government.
Okay. So you're saying that the first grasp, first step is the skilling, And then the second is the incentives. And once you
I,
get these two pieces,
I'd say skilling is second, maybe. I think first the government machinery should be, at least the PR around the government machinery should be there, that this is a serious national imperative. I'm
mm,
talking about India, but probably applicable to most nations across the globe. That if you have sources of clean tech, why not utilize it? And then comes skilling, and then comes the innovations around it.
what
Once,
should the government be doing? Do you think they should be offering incentives
yeah, yeah.
to incorporate? Like what sort of specific recommendations, if you had to recommend?
Incentives or just outright laws, any new development at least has to have X% of the energy requirements of the building met by clean tech.
Hmm.
If you just have an outright law, combined with incentives, it somehow works well in India, the carrot and stick policy.
Okay. So that's in the clean tech space. And since you do work in health tech,
Healthcare.
what sort of recommendations would you make to institutions, governments, educators in that space?
So I think, in the healthcare space, the skilling element is there. It's in not in place necessarily, but the trend is where in terms of, let's just say, the number of biotech institutions in India that are teaching biotechnology in a meaningful way. I think there's a decent critical mass. I'm sure there can be more, but government can help set up colleges to to incentivize people to study biotechnology. And then they can, government is a great consumer of these products because, the early cancer screening, right? You can have mass screenings at a state level, right?
Sure.
If startups know that such things are in place and they have a shot at earning a business at a mass level, let's say, uh, 10 crore people across UP decide to do mass screening for cancer, that will make a startup unicorn overnight. So I think
Mm.
uh, maybe a bit of an extreme example, but I think governments, once they catalyze a system so that people test themselves regularly. For example, you mandate it for government employees, right? Well, it's one way to do it. You just mandate that people need to take annual tests where they screen themselves for all these cancers or other diseases. They can get involved in that way.
Sure. Okay. So just doing a mass scale policy changes.
Yeah, they can be adopters of technology of any kind, cancer, diabetes, asthma. They can.
Okay. Okay. Great. And with all these changes coming in the future, in terms of the workspace, like you mentioned, you work out of home, and you have your eyes on what's going on all over the world, essentially from the comfort of your home. In general, how are you seeing, in certain sectors like yours and mine, perhaps we have the luxury of working from home.
Yes.
How are you overall seeing workplaces evolve? People said that flex time came, but now most of India is back to a 5-day work week. If you talk to managers in India, many of them say, oh, we don't want this. Talk to my friends in California, they went from 1 day working a week. Now many of them working back 3 days a week in the office. Not a full 5-day week yet in the West, but there is some change, and there is definitely a little bit of flexibility in the system as of today. What do you think it's going to look like 10 or 15 years out?
Yeah, see, I think what you're seeing, the ones that you mentioned are probably mid to larger size companies. I think there's a critical mass beyond which, decision making happens in a very through consensus, and then the meeting culture comes in, and then physical affinity plays a bigger part. I think for startups, again, let's say probably 80% of startups or more in India are 100 people or less,
Mm.
right? They tend to do well with dispersed teams and then meet occasionally. So I mentioned that I know startups that are globally dispersed. Now, let's say there's a startup in climate tech, let's say hypothetically, or health tech, where there's the experts could exist globally. There could be uh, a cancer expert in Delhi, and the startup could be based in Mumbai, the key team, and there could be one person, data analytics expert in Singapore.
Sure.
Now, either you decide that you won't hire this data analytics person from Singapore because you need to have someone local, or you say that we can work through collaboration tools all the way from Google spreadsheets, WhatsApp, emails, and Google Meets, and effectuate a good working culture that harnesses the abilities of all these people, and you build a startup out of it.
Sure.
I think the startup ecosystem is veering towards the latter. The key thing is to find talent, the right talent for your startup, and collaborate, and then meet once or twice in a year, even just at offsites, and just bond through non-work activities like playing a sport or anything like that. I mean, there's something to be said for physical bonding in a team to feel part of one organization and to meet and belong to one aligned path. But there's also something to be said about skills being can be obtained globally, and there's no need to disrupt a person's daily life, like the social infra of parents, school, and friends where they live and work. That disruption is worse, I think. The fact that if you have a startup in Mumbai, you need all the people to be moved in Mumbai. If an expert has to move from Assam
Sure.
and
Are
approve,
you seeing this sort of trend going on? This is what's happening currently already,
yeah,
right? So since the book is about the future,
yeah.
what do you think is going to happen 10, 15 years from now? This is already today. This is today's world.
No, I think in
Is this going to
future,
get further amplified, you think?
yeah, in the future, startups will necessarily be dispersed. I
They will
think people,
be
yeah,
dispersed.
they will be dispersed. I think people will find good ways. The whole collaborative culture around online tools like Zoom and GoToMeeting and others will actually mature to such a point, and there'll be an inflection point at which people will say, yeah, oh, why not? This person is based in Guwahati, so what? He has his skills. So GoToMeeting, Slack, and one other tool, we can bridge the geography gap.
Okay.
Why uproot himself from his surroundings, the school and the social infra, and we'll work from, if you can find someone in Mumbai, great, but otherwise, there's this one expert in Guwahati has to be part of our startup, and geography is not a barrier.
Okay. So you think workplaces are going to evolve to more
Yeah,
dispersed, scattered, using technology and tools, and you think that's what the future is
yes,
going to be
yes,
for?
yes,
Okay, at least in the startup ecosystem.
right,
Because obviously large scale companies where bulk of the employment still happens,
yeah.
uh, still maybe potentially still looking at clustering physically, but okay, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to add a point, you live in Mumbai, right? I like probably requires most of them people to come in, right?
Yeah,
It creates this culture where an average Mumbai travels hour and a half to Gansoli and back, so 3 hours a day in a car. Even
sure,
if you end up working from a car, it's 3 hours of a day per person back and forth. If in the startup eco that is bridge, the person has out of the 3 hours you take, okay, even if you work 2 hours, it's 1 hour of that time, right, where you're just struggling with the ecosystem going. You have 1 hour of your life for exercise, for yoga, for uh, any activity that enlivens you in a more holistic way, and you still get the same work achieved or more.
sure, sure. Yeah, but obviously that's a debatable because that's also contingent on of having employees who you can trust, who are ethical, who
Yes.
actually in the 9 hours from work, who don't put on a screen and are doing something else. I mean, there are lots of pros and cons to this.
Yeah, and I'll touch upon that. So trust, right? So again, that is a phenomenon of larger companies, where it's a bit easier for people to hide behind the work of others, and somehow, I guess there's some you just piggyback on other people's work and somehow state that it's yours. But in a startup, when there's 30, 40 people, everyone's visible, very visible on a daily basis. It's hard to
Hmm,
somehow put forth a brave face and say I did this when you didn't actually. It's pretty clear that the output is clearly measurable and
sure.
very visible. So I think it's much harder to do that in a smaller company.
Sure, sure. Okay, great. Okay, so you're seeing more remote, but
Right.
in technology-enabled remote workplaces.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, great. Okay. And as we move to these worlds, as the future changes, what sort of skills do you think, if you had, I don't know if you have children, but
Yes.
if you're talking to somebody young and anywhere in the age group of, let's say, 12 to 25, what sort of skills would you say, like, look, make sure you go equip yourselves with XYZ skill because this is the world that's coming. So in terms of skills, what would you say?
Yeah. So my firm belief is that it's going to be a mixture of digital technology skill which you need to have. You'll need to have a base level of technical skills, like and being able to write programs of some kind, of being technical to analyze data, to a technical bent of mind at a minimum. But equally important will be the classical human skills, because those won't be disrupted by AI, which is empathy, leadership, and the ability to work with teams, and be a key collaborator. I think especially I think a lot of career titles, right, will have the word augmented. So augmented product manager, augmented project, augmented analyst, which basically means that part of your job is using AI to remove the drudgery out of your work and to have AI do your work. And then the results that AI gives, you'll have to augment that with human skills, empathy, collaboration, and judgment. So you need,
so in terms
yes,
of skilling, you would say you're saying some level of digital savviness
yes,
and empathy, leadership, collaboration, which even in today's world, you need empathy, leadership, and collaboration, right? In some
yeah.
capacity or the other. How
But
is it
people
different?
somehow, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think we are saying the same thing. I think people somehow tend to trivialize these things. Like, one trend I'm seeing, I'm a lot into sports.
Hmm.
I think it builds a lot of life skills to be able to work in a team, to just to work with different people, understand different personalities, and you have to work together and align yourself. People tend to trivialize that. Oh, what's there in it? You need to have AI, you need to have robotics. That's the future. I think those people are missing the point. Just going on to signing on for every course in Byju's on AI and thinking that's the way of the future. They're missing the point that they know there's going to be need for technology, but AI won't disrupt certain areas. The human judgment is required. If you're not good at those human judgment and those skills, you'll actually be at a disadvantage if you just have AI skills.
And any example you want to share like that, where you feel like, look, without human judgment, here's where you could go wrong?
I can take something of an extreme judgment. Let's say you are, let's say one of the careers of the future, like is someone managing drones, drone traffic control. I read last night. It's
Yeah.
going to be a career of the future. So now let's say AI throws up an element saying that this drone is in distress and it's likely to with a
Crash.
98% probability is going to crash into a village where there's no people at that time of the night. So AI tells you let it crash because it'll avoid something else and it won't disrupt anything. But if as a human you just happen to know that there's a festival or you just happen to know something beyond what AI tells you. It
Sure.
tells you there's a likelihood of 5 kids playing in that courtyard at night.
Sure.
Okay, you need that human intervention and empathy to say that no, there's not one kid can be injured in this kind of an incident. And then so you see where I'm going, right? I'm not being
Sure.
fully
Sure.
accurate, but you
Sure.
need that level of judgment saying, okay, AI tells me this, but beyond, above and beyond that, I know something about which this is the wrong decision.
Sure. So it needs some level of empathetical lens,
Yeah,
some sort of human.
correct.
Okay. Okay. And without that, you're going
Yeah,
to.
yeah, you won't be a good drone manager without that level of empathy and understanding.
Sure. Okay. So you're saying along with building the tech side, build your right brain skills as well as your left brain
Yes,
skills.
yeah, the right makes it necessary, and the trivialization of those left brain, which a lot of people are feeding fear into, is wrong.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful because a lot of people are like, oh, just study computer science,
Yeah,
become an ML expert.
this whole trend towards having to know AI ML by seventh grade, eighth grade. No, I think it's even imperative to have one sport or one musical instrument or something like that by grade eight. It's equally important.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. Very, very helpful. So just keep a balance,
Yeah,
both sides of your brain.
yeah.
Okay. And since you talked about this drone manager, the drone security manager, just if you were thinking out loud, like what sort of careers are you seeing coming in the future? And the second question will be like the redundancies careers, but you could just address them as you feel comfortable. Which ones will go and which ones will come?
Yeah, so I think going is a bit easier. Anything that requires repetitive, manual intensive work, which is error prone, will get displaced by AI. So in the healthcare world, the first level of the wet lab analysis, you take a blood draw and you put it onto a slide and just keep peering at it with a microscope for 10, 12 hours a day, which is, again, error prone, human intensive, fatigue prone. You could
Hmm.
have had an argument from the family and you just make a wrong human decision. So 90% of that will happen through AI, that, this person is likely to have a certain disease pathway or not. And then the last 10% again is back to that human judgment, that, it's not actually that or this. So uh, um, early lawyers coming out of law school, they'd have to just go over through 10,000 tomes of documents to find a legal precedent that can easily be done by technology.
Sure.
And then comes the human element. So those careers will not exist or will be significantly disrupted by technology. Now, neo careers will form. I think drone manager is one. You might have people that create organs, create health organs,
Create health organs. Okay.
based on your cord blood, which is stored from birth, and based on your DNA, and based on your specific human profile. Uh, if your liver has to be replaced, it'll be a very customized liver, let's say, which is very specific to your height, your weight, your skin color, your propensity to consume beer, your lifestyle, your time of getting up, your relationships. You just think about that. Let's say you have a personalized kidney that cleanses your system in a way unique to you.
Wow.
It's possible at a minimum. It's plausible, and I think it's going to become possible.
You think they're going to start creating organs?
Yeah, in an ethical way. There's the ethical element is of course there. First of all, we don't want to all create everyone who's 7 feet tall from birth to so they can play basketball for the country. But
Sure.
I think for someone in distress, like I think disease cures, right, will get very personalized
Mm.
at your cellular level. They'll know that you're a person, a female in her 30s or 40s in South Bombay with certain exposure to certain elements, radiation. You live by the sea. You have X hours in traffic. Your human profile is very unique to you. So a
Sure.
disease cure has to be unique to your DNA and your personal thing, and you just not spray and pray chemo everyone or give you a tablet for blood pressure. I think it'll become very personalized, and your organ builder could well be a career.
Wow. Okay. And since you know the health tech space so well in the healthcare space overall, within that space, you said like some of the laboratory testing could get AI-fied.
Yeah,
What else?
largely the drudgery of it, the drudgery and the fatigue-prone elements of it, which are just
What about
human.
surgeons? When the surgeons need similarly, right? They need that sort of precision, but it's
Yeah.
also drudgery prone at some level. And do you see hospitals and operating theaters now full of robots in the next 15 years, or you think that's too far-fetched?
Yeah, that's no, that's part of it. I don't. Again, that's a classical example. When someone's getting an open heart bypass surgery, it will not be done by a robot. You'll have to have a human there because a human can capture an element of pain or something in the patient's makeup. With that, this is not the right thing. This is unbearable pain or it's bearable pain or something. So you need that human element. But now let's talk about robots. So there's a trend in surgery. There are surgeons doing an incision, for example. They themselves tend to have some kind of a tremor, like
Hmm.
they're doing it. They have to. That tremor sometimes causes life and death. It's been proven. It's so hard sometimes to just hold something in place to do it. So let's say you have a robotic arm now that just keeps it in one place.
Yeah.
You just insert it exactly where needed. That is a definite level of technology augmentation that comes in place.
Hmm.
Plus, that surgeon will be acting upon a lot of real-time data. So instead of just making a judgment, they'll have 5 screens with the person's cord blood, history from birth,
But
data.
all that the AI can also examine
Yeah,
five
yeah, but
screens
he'll have
versus 500 screens.
correct. So let's say you're removing a tumor, and you reach a point where you're not sure. You open up 5 screens and see 5 precedents where people of similar DNA makeup they found that doing this or that worked better.
Hmm.
It'll be fully informed decision.
But see, then it goes back to the precedent, right? If it's precedent based, then AI can probably do it better than a human.
So AI will be a big enabler.
Okay.
It's not there today. I don't think when someone's making a decision on where to
Make
infuse something in the tumor, they're making okay. They have it in the mind maybe that okay, someone did that, so it's 30 degrees to the right or left. But completely granular data about for people living in South Bombay, age 43, who travel, just completely granularized, and to have that at your fingertips and then make a decision
Mm.
is where AI and ML will play a significant role.
Okay. So it looks like we're going to have hybrid everything. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
laboratories, hybrid hospitals, hybrid classrooms. It's not one versus the other. It looks like that's why you said empathy, collaborative skills, because
yeah.
it's going to be man with machine, not man versus machine.
Correct, correct, correct.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you for this. Just as we sign off, any closing words you'd like to talk about? Any just general thoughts, ideas on what's coming in the future, trends, and anything you'd like to wrap with?
So I think you've answered in the last question. It's a good question. I'm definitely optimistic for the future. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think technology and innovation has unquestioned ability to make our lives significantly better, from healthcare, climate tech, and things like that. Though that is unquestionable. I think technology, of course, carries some dark baggage along with it. Money gets diverted, money and innovation gets and resources get diverted to things that are not beneficial for the society. Uh,
Like what? Like what is the
like
cautious coming from?
yeah, I mean, as an example, there's a large growth of I think porn over the internet, right?
Mm.
It's morally adverse. It doesn't benefit society. People make money out of it, but in the end it's morally reprehensible and morally adverse, right? It sends resources. Those resources could be better used for other purposes. Uh, and then a little bit of a dichotomy, but technology also has the ability to alienate people from society. So people are getting, again, if you don't take part in traditional hobbies and bonding events, I use the same examples again and again because I'm passionate about this, but sports or a musical instrument or something that you really meet people in the real world and associate. If you don't do that, if you try and just play fantasy cricket online, it's a very poor substitute for playing cricket on a field.
Sure.
People need to understand that. Parents need to understand this. Educators need to understand this, and stop deluding yourselves into saying that if my child learns AI and learns to build a good fantasy team online, it's how sports is going to be in the future. You're just missing the absolute point of why physical bonding activities exist today in today's world.
Okay, so you're saying one of the threats is a lack of social integration
Yeah,
that might come with so much codependence on machines.
correct. So they have a place in life. Machines, AI, ML have a place in life. uh, f- just ask yourself, what is it doing? Is it really bringing the harnessing the sunlight for cleaner future? Is it really curing diseases? Are you finding cures for things that are killing people, or is it actually worsening some of these diseases by lack of exercise, lack of empathy? Humans getting more depressed actually on result of not doing what they're supposed to do. You know, technology has to uplift.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Okay, I think that's a very, very beautiful. I love the closing, how you're actually going out to solve these problems, but you might end up opening the Pandora's box to just the converse of those problems
right,
that
right,
you're just trying to solve.
right.
Okay, wow, this is a very, very potent point to. I think we should end on this point because I want this to remain as the
Okay.
key takeaway. But this was very, very interesting, Devang. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. And any other thoughts that come through over the course of the next few months, please feel free to just send me an email with any thoughts you'd like me to insert, and be very happy to quote you in the book.